Even spiritual godfather of 1001 Album Complaints, Robert Christgau, gives it his stamp of approval, saying that Kerplunk, quote, beats masturbating. Welcome to 1001 Album Complaints, the show where lifelong friends, musicians, and guys who show their love through gentle but pointed mockery tell the backstory on the most influential albums of all time, as chronicled in Robert Dimery's book, 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. Now, if you don't know today's album super well, or not at all, no worries, we're going to guide you through it. We're going to play song clips while we dive into the backstory of this artist and this album. And along the way, we'll be breaking these songs down musically and culturally to offer you both our praise and our nitpicky complaints as musicians. And at the end of all that, we're going to vote on whether this album is really a must listen before you die. Now, if you're a regular listener to the show, thank you and welcome back. But if you're new to the show, let me give you our standard disclaimer. We're musicians ourselves, you see. We understand how difficult it is to make truly great art, and we come from a place of love and respect for the craft. But we also enjoy nitpicking and complaining, as the title of our show suggests. So we are not super fans, but honestly, even if we were, we'd still enjoy laughing about the way our favorite music got made. Bottom line here, we won't be treating this artist or this album with any particular reverence. Instead, we'll be talking some loving smack the way all musicians do in the van ride to the next gig when the radio plays literally anything. My name's Rob. I'm a guitar player with decades of experience playing, writing, and recording music, and I'm here tonight to walk you through the story of a band who invented punk rock. That's right, Green Day. And if any of you listening just did a spit take, damn, this is too easy, guys.
Oh, man.
Stop all the punk rock pearl clutching and have a little fun. Today's album is perfect for that. But seriously, this is a story about a band that kicked off a revolution and revived mainstream interest in that most hallowed of musical genres that even the most devoted fans can't quite define, called punk rock. It is Green Day's Dookie. So, before we get to the complaining and the backstory, let's play a clip of the most enduring song from this album. It is called the way. Now you have a sense of what we've been listening to here. We are going to go around the room and introduce our panel of complainers for the evening by way of an extra mean, extra snarky tweet-length review of Green Day's Dookie. And I'm going to throw things first to Tom.
Thank you, Rob. On Dookie, Green Day completely sell out by signing to a major label and putting out a harmony-laden album that is way too poppy to be punk. If only they had stuck to their roots like punk pioneers The Clash, who, now that I think about it, put out plenty of very poppy songs, or like the Sex Pistols, who I suppose signed with Virgin Records, or the Ramones, who actually weren't that shy about incorporating harmony into their songs. Jesus, Green Day, you can't even sell out in an original way.
Okay. And we are going to kick it next to our very special guest who's going to get a proper introduction shortly. But first things first, Logan, let's hear your tweet-length review.
Thank you, Rob. So
Three substance-using, sex-starved, manic sad boys sing about life, love, and heartbreak in the early 1990s. And no, they are not Nirvana. It is Green Day.
Indeed. I see a theme developing here as I look at my own tweet, but we're going to go next to Adam.
I had two here because, Rob, I didn't want to step on any of your by the numbers, so we'll see which one of these lands. All right. The universal rule of threes. 3 dudes, 3 chords, 3 too many songs on this, their third album, and 3 decades of disappointing music.
Damn. Jeez.
That's good.
Harsh.
My other one, all right. Billy Joe Armstrong stabs the early 90s punk community in the back with his properly tuned guitar. Yes, Green Day is to punk as Marvel is to cinema.
Wow.
Wow. The real old man yells at cloud. It's good.
It really is, yes. Yeah.
We're going to round things out here with my tweet length review. This is Rob, and I wrote, Northern California legends reinvent and reinterpret the last few decades of music to make something vital, modern, and uniquely American while breaking all the rules and generally being punk as hell about entertaining hordes of teenagers with freaky haircuts. I'm talking, of course, about the Grateful Dead. Green Day, on the other hand, are sellouts, and we as a society should continue punishing them for that.
Oh, poor Green Day.
Yeah.
A way to be successful.
Yeah. Oh, God. Talk about successful. Jesus.
I am very excited to talk about tonight's album and to get into this backstory that I've been researching all week. But first, I want to welcome our very special guest, Logan, contest winner, the last of our listener request contest. You supported us by buying a copy of Stay Puft. You entered the raffle to come in, and you chose Green Day's Dookie. So please, Logan, take the mic, introduce yourself to the audience, and segue into telling us a little bit about why you chose Green Day's Dookie.
Hello, longtime listener, first-time caller. Just want to thank you guys for having me on.
Sure.
Surprised, mostly because I don't ever win anything. So this is a new page for me, so I like it.
I mean, I don't know if you really won anything here, but, well, you know, all right, you're here, so it's something.
It's something, yeah. Obviously love the show and was happy to get the opportunity to pick a record. I had a couple ones bouncing around, but if I think about my musical history, Dookie just makes the most sense. My first 2 records I remember growing up are Enema of the State by Blink-182 and Get Rich or Die Trying by 50 Cent.
Oh, okay.
Questionable parenting aside, Dookie was definitely on the radar, and so I just think it made the most sense. Also, pretty easy listen, I think.
Nice. Well, so I'm going to take a stab at it based on those picks and say that you might be a little younger than us.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Because I think part of, we can segue into our general impressions of Dookie, but I think it's safe to say, or I'll speak for myself, that I remember when Dookie dropped.
Well said.
I remember when the Longview video first hit MTV, and it really struck me right away. I was about 13 years old-ish, and I bought this CD pretty early in that run. Within that first year, contributed to their meteoric rise in success, and it's still a really fun record.
Yeah. Yeah, good pick, Logan. This was quite the enjoyable week, I must say. Just like super poppy, good songs. I mean, it's like pop with a punk sneer. Like I say, it's probably pop first and then punk. But
Yeah, right.
I came away impressed by how fucking good the band is. Like, Trey Cool and Mike Dirt are monsters back there. They really hold it all together. And to give Billy Joe a compliment, he writes really well for his vocal range. Maybe one of my complaints is that it never sounds like he's strained and it never sounds like he's really pushing himself. But like, I think a big problem that I have with a lot of like mediocre punk is that they eschew melody too much. And these songs are really melodic. There's a lot to really like.
And the other thing that it does really, really well is dynamics. Another common complaint of lesser punk music, or in this general area of music, is that it just kind of does one mode, hard and fast, the entire time.
Yeah.
These guys have a really good sense of how to use the trio to their advantage sonically and also rhythmically, and to create these little breaks in the arrangements that help reset your ear and make you excited to rock again.
Yeah, Rob, am similar to you. I didn't have cable as a kid, so I would only see MTV when I would go over to my grandmother's house. And I remember seeing, I suppose it's Basket Case, where they're in the mental hospital.
Yeah.
And I remember that was my first exposure. I was like, what the hell is this? Oh my God, this is great. Now, I didn't go out and buy the album. I actually didn't hear the full album until Tom, you, me, and Phil and our friend Mike all started playing together, I remember our drummer Mike was really into Trey Cool, and he kind of got me into the rest of this album with some serious chops on this album as well. Tight. You can do punk in a couple different ways as a drummer, playing too fast and you can't actually play that fast. But Trey Cool nails it on this album with the speed and, yeah, Rob, you mentioned dynamics. Yeah, man, it's just all around pretty solid. Now, I will say 38 minutes is usually kind of in our wheelhouse of like the perfect length for an album.
Right.
This did start to get a little tiresome near the end. I don't know if it's just the genre just had me exhausted. I think they did a good job of switching up guitar tones. It wasn't all one note the whole time, but just near the end, I started to get a little exhausted.
Yeah, I'm jumping off that point, Adam. Like, it's been a while since I listened to it too, and I was struck by like how quick it went. And if nothing else, maybe I saved you guys and gave you an easy week, considering some of the stuff that you've listened to in the past.
Indeed.
Right.
But yeah, I think it still holds up for sure, and it still sounds pretty good and all that, and definitely had a pretty easy week on my end.
Yeah, it feels unfair to complain about the length, and yet I did feel what you felt, Adam. And it must just be the genre, because the songs, for the most part, are short. They get in, they get out. Almost all of them are catchy and have a hook to them, and I couldn't really find a lot of complaints on that level. That said, they do have somewhat of a formula, and they hit it again and again in these 2.5, 3-minute pop songs. So I agree with the complaint to a certain extent, but I'm not really sure what they could have done.
Well, I think that looking at the album, you get to When I Come Around at track 10, and that's a great song. It's just a very well-constructed classic song. And then the next 4 songs are kind of not as fully baked. And so you're sort of like, well, why am I still hanging around for this? I mean, granted, they're all under 2 minutes, except for the last song. But you sort of get to the point where you're kind of like, all right, you're not ending exactly on a bang with the material here. It's not as front loaded as I thought it was going to be either. Like, I expected it was going to be like, come in, Basket Case, Longview, Welcome to Paradise, like all right in a row. And it wasn't that. But I do think that the end of the album doesn't quite hold up as much as the rest of the album. And also there is the guitar playing power chords, never defining a major or minor chord ever. Like, that does lead to a lot of sameness in the guitar presentation. Now, I think Mike Dirnt does a good job of like being the one who defines the major and the minor by throwing that third in there. He's a very tasteful player, but you do get like the same guitar presentation the whole time, basically.
It's true, but you can tell also that they did really think about their roles in the band. And Mike Dirnt, the bass player, is absolutely the melodic heart of the band. He is the lead. It's lead bass for sure. And Billy Joe is very strictly rhythm, although he does get off a few little passages of lead guitar occasionally.
Totally.
But for the most part, like you said, he's playing power chords. But just to add to that, you'll notice, and I'll point it out in a couple of the songs, he does something very specific with his chord rhythms to be more of a rhythmic center to the band, which is that he alternates between hitting a 2-note power chord and more notes. And it gives it the feel of a drum kit. Like, you get this contrast within this very fast downstrokey rhythm because he's playing this tighter, crunchier thing and this wider open thing where he hits more strings. I think that's a signature part of their sound.
Yeah, that almost like functions like a hi-hat, where you can play the hi-hat closed and it's a very tss, and then you open it and it rings out.
Yep, exactly. Even like a hi-hat and a snare. In other words, he's using that second thing as a backbeat. And you could hear it in the opening of Basket Case, for instance.
Ah, okay, yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I was also very pleasantly surprised by how consistently good the harmony is and how much harmony there was. I don't think that I consciously was aware of that when I was listening as a kid, because it's been a long time since I listened to this album. And I very much enjoyed diving back into it, but there was more complexity to what Billy Joe was putting out there vocally than I think I had appreciated as a kid. Like, he's got a lot of really good, like, high drone notes that he puts in there that really work well for harmonies. It was, we talked about this on Nevermind. It's just like you take something that could be like noisy and chaotic and you just tighten it up just a little bit and you give it just a little bit of sheen and you throw a little bit of harmony in there and it goes a really long way.
I'm sure longtime listeners are scrambling to like, wait, what happened to the Nevermind
No,
episode?
we didn't do the Nevermind episode. We were just talking about Nevermind so fucking much on the show already without actually covering it.
Well, it's going to continue here, I assure you. Yeah, Billy Joe's voice is iconic. I think you have to acknowledge that that's a huge part of their success. We talk a lot on the show about how the drummer makes the band, and he does, and so does the bass, but the voice is out in front, and it has the right... I heard someone say that in this era of sort of disaffectation and a little bit of rock star aloofness that was happening with the other grunge singers of the time, this guy kind of felt like an everyman. He felt like someone you could listen to and say, he's just like me. He's just as juvenile as me and as silly as
He's
me.
still thinking about dick jokes in his 20s and 30s and 40s, right?
It's a little more of the snot-nosed kid perspective. And as I read about the record, comparing that to the posturing of the Pearl Jams, the Soundgardens, even their Nirvanas, which I also liked and enjoyed even back then, but they were hearkening back to like 70s rock star culture a little more.
Yeah. I don't listen to Lane Stanley or Chris Cornell and be like, I'd love to hang out with those guys. Right. Billy Joe, you're like, he seems like he'd be a good time, man. Like, we'd go out, probably have some drinks, maybe do a little light mischief, like some minor vandalism or something.
Absolutely.
Like, there's a crackling immaturity on this album in the best way possible.
That's the other thing I want to point out, because for me, it's almost surprising to look back on these 90s records, and we covered another one kind of recently, Smashing Pumpkins' Siamese Dream. And I believe I said on that episode, I wasn't on this train from the beginning. It wasn't until after I met Tom a few years later, and even after that, when I sort of got into Smashing Pumpkins. But this is one I happened to be on the train for, which is a bit of a rarity for me. And I think it has to do in part with the idea that they're taking the teenage angst and instead of turning it into rage, like maybe Smashing Pumpkins did, or Rage Against the Machine, they turned it into this gleeful pop.
Fun.
Exactly.
Imagine that. You're right. That's great.
And that was easier for me to relate to back then. Nowadays, I like both sides of that coin. But back then, that was where I was at.
Do you think it was kind of just maybe like coming out of the 80s and like maybe a new decade opened up some possible positivity or something like that? Because that's what I'm thinking too, the world's out in front of them and all that kind of stuff.
I think this came up on Oasis, where we were talking about definitely maybe that it was this nice antidote to just how much of a downer grunge was. And it's like, yeah, there's a time and place for listening to downer music, but sometimes you just want to listen to fun music. And this music is just, it's really fun. And especially for the age that I was when it came out, kind of talking about jerking off and you're like sort of just getting into that. You're kind of like, oh, this is like speaking right to me, man. Like Billy Joe, like I said, Billy Joe's just like me. He also is sexually frustrated and doesn't quite know what to do with his life. Yeah, this is fantastic.
I mean, and right up my alley, maybe about like 10 years later, it still holds very timeless topics, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons Longview stood out to me right away. The look and feel of it. They're literally in the basement apartment that Green Day were living in. That's where they filmed that video. And he's just sitting on a grungy couch, which just looked familiar to me. And he's kind of got a rubber face Jim Carrey thing going on. And he's just talking about smoke a pot all day, which I wasn't doing yet, but still, it seemed subversive instantaneously.
Yeah, but also all the people that were fans of them before and were real punks were like, this is so fucking lame. They're so selling out, which I hate that attitude.
And we're going to get to some of that in the story. This was peak selling out time in the culture, which is kind of a dead concept now. So we were joking about it in our tweet length reviews, but it meant a lot at the time. But in the same way that Nirvana was a indie goes mainstream moment that had been brewing for at least a decade, probably more than a decade, this also, it was kind of happening on a parallel track of all ages punk clubs, of hardcore kind of getting reprocessed into this next generation that was more fun and upbeat. And they sort of distilled down what the masses could appreciate about that kind of music. And then this is what broke through and created all that other success, like the Blink-182s of the world, of course.
I forget where I heard it, but like I remember watching some sort of documentary however long ago, but somebody said actual true punk music just is not marketable like by nature, right? So in order for this to break through, something had to change. And so I think it probably was replacing with like melodies and things along those lines or whatever. I think Billy Joe, I'd be surprised if he said he didn't have a Beatles influence, that kind of thing, because I think the melodies definitely come through and all that.
Oh, yeah. It's in here. Beatles are definitely in the story.
Woo! Bouncing off of what you're saying, I think that there is an ethos of punk that if it is marketable, it kind of can't be punk, right? Like they don't want their favorite bands to be popular because then everybody likes it and it doesn't make me special for liking it.
It's a total catch-22 that is inherently silly, and that's why we always make fun of it. We're going to continue that tradition today. Don't worry. But this is a great segue to start getting into the background of Green Day and of the record Dookie, and longtime listeners will remember that ages and ages ago, I don't have the episode number, we covered Green Day's American Idiot.
Jeez, you're right.
But we really didn't tell the backstory of Green Day in that time or really much history at all. So we're going to go back, talk about how the band formed, and please continue with your comments and insights about this genre and this band along the way. Please interrupt me. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break. And we're back. So let's set the scene. It's 1986 at Pinole High School, a town on the San Francisco Bay, across the water from San Francisco itself, but just a handful of miles north of both Berkeley and Oakland, which happen to be right next to each other. Fair warning, audience, going to be talking about the geography a lot because it's where Tom and I lived for so long. Tom still lives there, so we kind of know a lot of these places.
Every week I would have to drive out past Pinole for work for like 12 years in a row or something like that. And I fucking hated that stretch of the drive so much.
Thousands of times. Thousands of times. This is the Bay Area, right? So two 14-year-olds in love with punk music are learning to play guitar together, and they decide to form a band that would a few years later become Green Day. One of them is Billy Joe Armstrong, born in Oakland, California, the son of a jazz musician by night and a Safeway truck driver by day.
Damn.
That's a grocery store chain for anyone who might not know.
And that's what you do when you're a jazz musician.
Right. Yeah, that's not going to support a family.
You have a day job driving trucks.
It sounds like a great recipe. Stay out all night, drinking and playing jazz music, wake up super early and drive a 4-ton truck down the streets. Yeah.
He says, what, 86? Yeah, pretty apropos, right? Yeah.
Now, sadly, Billy Joe's dad died when he was 10 years old of cancer.
Oh.
And a very somber fact incoming that when his dad died, it was actually in the month of September, and that's who he wrote the song Wake Me Up When September Ends about.
Oh, okay. It's a good song, by the way.
Billy Joe is the youngest of 6 kids, which I think helps account for his puckish attitude towards life. In fact, to the best of my research, all 3 of these guys in Green Day are the youngest children of their family.
To bring it back here for a second, what fucking jazz musician thinks that he can support 6 kids? What the hell was he thinking? Come on, man. You got to know your limitations. You could support a cat, maybe.
His mom was a microbiologist at Berkeley. No, she was a waitress.
Jesus. Times is tough.
So Billy Joe's raised by his mom, who's a waitress, and by his many older siblings who help introduce him to punk rock. And at age 10, he meets his future bandmate, Mike Pritchard, a.k.a. Mike Dirnt, at school, and they bond over a shared love of records, and they start both learning to play guitar together. Mike's parents are divorced. He's going through that around the time he meets Billy Joe. They become fast friends through music, such that a couple years later, they find themselves at Pinole High School as freshmen, and they start a band at age 14 called Desecrated Youth, which shortly thereafter changes its name to Sweet Children.
Dude, Desecrated Youth. That's pretty good.
That's good.
That's awesome. For, 86 you said? Oh, man, that's
86,
badass.
yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Usually, the 2 friends learn how to play guitar together. One of them turns into the bass player story is that one of the guys got really good at guitar. And then the other guy's like, I'm never going to catch up, so I learned how to play the bass. I don't think that happened.
It's the other version of the story, which I'm sure you'll recognize, where bass player leaves and they're like, somebody's got to do it, guy.
Yeah.
So they play shows, they write songs, they start getting a little better over time, as can be expected, right? And they go through some lineup changes. First, they swap out a drummer or 2. Originally, they were playing as a 4-piece, but then the bass player from that 4-piece leaves the band, and Mike decides to hop over to bass. Don't worry, he maintains his guitar credibility by playing way more notes than most bass players do in a career.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, now you say that.
As mentioned many years ago in our American Idiot episode, Dirnt's stage name, Dirnt, came from him always miming the sound of air guitar and air bass around high school with the comic book punctuation of dirnt, 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 dirnt. That's where he got the name.
So he was real cool. And popular with the ladies.
Just talking to himself all day. Yeah, I'm sure everybody wanted to hang out with him.
Yeah, right. Making noises.
A major influence on these guys to even be in a band at this point, of course, you have bands like the Ramones and classic rock bands like AC/DC, but you also have local heroes, Operation Ivy, a ska punk band with guys just a few years older than Billy Joe and Mike, including one Tim Armstrong, who, by the way, is not related to Billy Joe Armstrong at all, but he is known for later forming the band Rancid and being the lead singer of that band.
All right.
So in high school, these guys are trucking down to Berkeley to see Operation Ivy and many others at an all-ages club called 924 Gilman. This is one of those legendary local scene clubs in the area. It's a co-op. It's run as an all-ages music venue. It's originally created from a caning warehouse in the 80s, and it becomes the spot for punk bands in the 80s and into the 90s in Berkeley.
What the fuck is a caning warehouse?
You know, like that thing where they take wicker and they make it into baskets?
Okay.
Oh, I thought they were making canes.
Oh.
I was like, is there that big a demand for canes?
I thought it was maybe like, the Singapore style punishment where they cane
Oh,
you.
Right. That's very punk. So I just want to do a quick PSA for it is so important to have all ages venues. It is absolutely helpful in developing a scene because think about it. Most bands start in high school. This is where a lot of musical aspirations come from, and it helps keep kids out of trouble. And of course, that's middle-aged me talking, but my first ever shows were at all ages punk venues like this in Newark, Delaware. And I even remember my first quote unquote proper show at age 14. Seeing a proper touring band was going to see They Might Be Giants at the Trocadero in Philadelphia because they were the only all-ages club around that actually got touring bands. So really important.
Adam and I, when we grew up playing, a lot of the shows that we would play would be at bars, and so none of our friends could come. Right. And we'd be like 17 years old playing at a bar to like 43-year-old people. We're like, we don't even like the same kind of music that you like. What the fuck? None of this is going to work out here. And then you're getting hit on by weird, like middle-aged women, you know? Yeah.
Good times.
It was good times, yeah.
Yeah, it was actually.
I was briefly in a band in high school too for a couple of years, and it definitely resonated with that story. Like we're trying to sell tickets, couldn't sell a fucking ticket, you know? Just hand it back to the guy like, we're so sorry. Like none of our friends could be here anyway.
I can't get in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys used to play like a biker bar in Elkton, Maryland. I think I went one time, and it was divey.
Challengers Club. Yeah.
Challengers Club. Well done. Well done.
So Sweet Children are gigging around for about 2 years, and after the previously mentioned lineup changes, they're a three-piece, right? They start to gain some momentum, including playing multiple shows at 924 Gilman. And one night, they get seen there by the owner of Lookout Records, a local indie record label, a guy called Larry Livermore, which is also a Bay Area reference, because there's a town called Livermore, and there's a famous research laboratory called Lawrence Livermore Labs. So this is the punk label of the area, and Larry Livermore not only runs the label, but he's also the lead singer of a local punk band, a few years older again, called The Lookouts. So it's a pretty small-time operation. Their big success at that point was releasing the one and only Operation Ivy album. So it's perfect for Sweet Children. The one problem is that they are concerned, after signing, I should point out, I think right before their first release comes out at the last minute, with their band name, because there's another band name called Sweet Baby, and they're afraid they're going to be confused with them. So they decide to use local Bay Area slang to make a new one. And they decide to call the band Hella. No, I'm just kidding. This Bay Area humor there.
Total other band. Yeah.
Hella are also a cool band.
Yeah, they are. They're a very cool band.
Super prog, super weird. They call themselves Green Day, which according to the band was local slang for a day spent entirely smoking weed. Now, I've lived in the Bay Area for a long time. I have never heard that particular bit of slang.
Heard that vernacular.
It's possible they co-opted it once they became popular and then it went away. I'm also slightly skeptical. It's hard to say, right?
Well, but you've never smoked weed all day, Rob. So that therefore,
Good point.
you would never
Good-
know.
Right.
I know that punks aren't like known for their reading comprehension all the time, but you could probably figure it out too, just based on how it sounds.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Their first show as Green Day, the band, was in May of 1989. So they are still like 16, 17 at this point. They're quite young, and it's opening for Operation Ivy at 924 Gilman.
Badass.
So with Lookout Records, they release an EP, then their first official full length. It's called 39 Smooth.
Fucking terrible name.
It's terrible. It's pretty well received in the local community. I listened to it, by the way, and to their credit, it sounds like Green Day. It's less polished. It's more or less a similar approach and vibe to being a band. It's fast, melodic punk with relatively emotional song topics and harmonies, and the bass guitars doing kind of similar things. So they've stayed relatively consistent, to their credit.
To your point, Tom, I was thinking like those are the only songs I can really remember Billy Joe pressing out his voice, at least before Dookie. I think there's a song called Going to Pasalacqua, I think is how you say that, but he kind of gets outside of his range a little bit in that. I think that they maybe wanted to clean it up a little bit and make it more presentable. So
Okay. Or maybe more easily repeatable. We've had that problem before where it's like, I can technically hit this note, but like you asked me to do that at the end of a show when my voice is all stressed out, I'm going to
Jesus,
completely
yeah.
be blown out. Or you asked me to do it perfectly in the studio, and it's not going to fucking happen.
A second time, right?
So their first album has minor success. It's well received in the community. It prompts a national tour, however, and Billy Joe, who's 17 at this point, drops out of high school. Now, Mike Dirnt decides to finish up, and he's graduating basically right as they're heading out on tour. They grab a borrowed van, they play punk clubs and living rooms around the country, something like 45 dates. And that brings us to our very intermittent and hard to predict segment that may or may not show up on time for the show, even though fans are demanding it. Yes, that's right. It's Is It Punk Green Day edition.
Yes. Love it.
All
And
right.
the answer is simply no. And that's been another edition of Is It Punk?
the fans would riot about that one.
Right.
I'm just kidding. I got a couple tidbits for you here about Green Day, the band. And you have to ring in with your name and tell me if it's punk or not and why. So, as soon as Green Day got just a tiny bit of cash in their pockets, this is still pre-Dookie, but we're jumping ahead a little bit, they decided to get themselves a proper touring van. So they bought a bookmobile from a local library in Arizona, refurbished and driven by Trey Cool's dad, nicknamed Papa Cool. And apparently, despite the outside being painted over, people would still periodically ask the band if they had books for sale, to which they would invariably reply, "We don't even know how to read. Is it punk?"
Yes, it's punk. Because taking books and the opportunities for reading out of people's hands, that's the most punk thing possible.
Yes, that is correct, Tom. It is punk. It is punk. Any project involving repurposing of a large vehicle into a rolling tank of debauchery is punk. I don't care if you're Ken Kesey or Green Day. Okay, next up. On their first national tour, venues that scheduled the band received contracts from Green Day with two requests. That nourishment and accommodation was prioritized over money, but they did ask for a minimum of $100 if there was enough to spare. Now, the band also stated on the contracts that places don't have to give us any of these things, of course, but we also don't have to tune our instruments before we play either. Is it punk?
No, they're sellouts.
Yeah, that's correct, Adam. That is correct. That's correct. It is not punk, Adam. While sounding terrible on purpose is, in fact, the most punk thing ever, this is an empty threat. And also, needing to eat food instead of just heroin and audience spit, not punk.
I was going to say contracts are also not punk either. Who do they think they are?
And they're admitting that they have a tuner, too. It's totally not punk.
Side note, I read that Billy Joe also met his eventual wife at a house party on this very first tour in Minnesota, and they corresponded as pen pals for a while. It took them a few years to really get together officially, but then they got married in the mid-90s, and they're still married.
Oh, not punk.
not punk.
Yeah, not punk at all.
Okay, next up we have, at a 2025 concert in Luxembourg, Billy Joe invited a fan on stage to play guitar while he sang Time of Your Life. He hands this kid the guitar, but instead of playing Time of Your Life, the kid starts playing Wonderwall instead to troll the band. Is it punk?
That is the punkest thing I've heard in this segment so far.
Hell yes.
That is correct. Yes, this is a true fuck you and fuck me moment that typifies how dumb young people are. But it's also the kind of thing that Green Day would do when they were that age.
Right.
So, yes.
Did they kick the kid off the stage immediately, or did they just laugh and then he played Time of Your Life?
Billy Joe didn't handle it quite as well as I would have thought, but he handled it with a plume. He did kick the kid off stage and take the guitar back with relative alacrity.
That is great.
They had some beef with Oasis like in the mid 2000s from what I heard, because like it was either Noel or Liam didn't like how much Boulevard of Broken Dreams sounded like. I think it was Wonderwall, actually.
That sounds right. I did hear about that.
But Oasis are such reasonable lads. How could they possibly have beef with anybody?
Of course, this video, which I watched, got tweeted shortly after, and I saw that I think it was Liam Gallagher tweeted back, best song of the night, right away.
What a fucking asshole.
Just always ready to troll. It's the best.
So awesome.
Okay, and finally, the last example. Green Day is known to this day for playing secret bar shows under assumed names all the time, just to entertain themselves and the hardcore fans who track their every move. Sometimes it's an all covers set, sometimes it's deep cuts, but it is always a party. Is it punk?
Hell yeah, it's punk. That is how you gotta be famous. If you're famous, fucking do shit like that.
Yes.
Although, Rob, you know, you and I have that experience. We went to go play at the Stork Club in Oakland, and they told us that Green Day, like 2 nights before, had tried to do a secret show, and it was like right at the beginning of the social media era, and apparently like cops had to come and shut the streets down and stuff. Like thousands of people showed up to this tiny club, and it kind of killed that, you know, ability to do that.
All the guys at the bar, I remember, looked like they had been through a war as well.
Yeah. And the place was fucking trash, too. It looked like, you know, yeah.
Yes, it is punk. It is the coolest thing by far to do with your fame. And yes, because we've lived in the Bay Area for so long, I've heard a few of those stories, that one being the one that we were closest to, because I think it was just a night or two before we played there at this tiny club. But I also remember hearing a possibly apocryphal story that the bottom of the hill window behind the stage, which had a big shatter mark in it, was from Green Day throwing something at it.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
So you guys didn't also just spread the rumor that Green Day was coming back 2 days later? Thousands of people show up. Who the fuck are these guys?
Opportunity.
We would have been fucking lynched because we weren't even that good. So they would not have been happy with us.
Okay, thus ends another version of Is It Punk? Now let's get back to our story. The national tour, the first one, is over. They record some more songs, released as EPs. They're on streaming. Sometimes you see all these compiled together with the first album, just by the way. And the band sees the tour as a success. But the drummer, whose name is John Kithmeyer, is like, I don't want to do that again, ever. So he quiet quits the band by enrolling in college, not punk.
How old was he? 16? Or was he like in his 20s? And went back.
They're all the same age, and youth is definitely a big part of this story. Cool. So yeah, they're all just finishing high school, or like I said, Billy Joe had dropped out. So Billy Joe is pretty depressed about it, right? He feels like things are just starting to happen. The band gets completely hamstrung. He considers breaking up the group entirely, but then he remembers a drummer that he knows from 924 Gilman, a guy called Trey Cool who's been playing in local punk band The Lookouts since he was, wait for it, 11 years old.
Jeez.
Damn.
Wow.
Let's talk about his origin story.
That's just insane, by the way, that you could have like a 16-year-old in a band who's the seasoned veteran. Like, wait a minute, what?
Right. And we recently talked about the Replacements, who also had an 11-year-old in the band, where the other guys in the band were like 18. But anyway, but Trey Cool is the same age as Billy Joe and Mike Dirnt. He just started when he was extremely young.
Okay. Right.
So Frank Edwin Wright III, a.k.a. Trey Cool, was born in West Germany. His dad was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. That's Papa Cool, previously mentioned. And he happened to live a couple doors down from aforementioned Larry Livermore, the man behind Lookout Records and the band The Lookouts. And just because it would be weird if we didn't say what his name means, his name is both a play on his status as the third of his name, because he's a third, for which the nickname Trey is fairly common. But it's also a reference to the French language, as in very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not punk, but cool.
Not fun. So he's the same age as the Green Day guys. He's been watching their career. He's even played shows with them. And Billy Joe thinks of him. And it just so happens that the Lookouts have broken up or Tré Cool is open. And bam, he's free and he's excited to join the band. So they play, they get used to each other. They can tell right away that this has upped their level. The audience can tell. This guy adds pop. He adds vigor. We know what he sounds like on the record. So the band heads back into the studio shortly thereafter to record their follow-up. It's called Kerplunk, but they do have to pause a couple times to continue touring. They are building a fan base. They're building their repertoire. And I read that because of the relatively modest success of their first LP, their budget had risen for Kerplunk to $2,000.
Whoa.
And honestly, even with 1989 prices, I don't know what you could even get for that. Is that 10 days in a $200 a day studio?
Wow.
Yeah, I guess so.
Doesn't include tape.
Yeah.
That seems pretty cheap. Kerplunk comes out. Kerplunk is a success. They sell 10,000 copies in the first week of its release.
Dude.
Jesus.
It is all based on this scene that has been happening in 924 Gilman and also the touring they've been doing around the country. So at this point, they know they have something on their hands. Not only do they sell those 10,000 copies quickly, they sell another 20K over the next year. But what's the problem that we're running into here? It is by far Lookout Records' biggest hit. For comparison's sake, I mentioned that they did the only Operation Ivy album that had been their previous biggest seller. That one took like 2 years to sell 2,000 copies. So they are overwhelmed. Now, I should say nowadays, Kerplunk is labeled as platinum, but that all came later as fans discovered the back catalog of Green Day. But regardless, it's a huge upgrade for the band. They get a lot of momentum. They tour Europe. They add dates. They bond as a group. They upgrade venues. They find themselves generally drawing like 10x the crowd that they were on their previous tours of the US. This is also when they upgraded their band transportation to get the bookmobile, and even spiritual godfather of 1001 Album Complaints, Robert Christgau, gives it his stamp of approval, saying that Kerplunk, quote, beats masturbating.
Wow. Okay. What a wordsmith.
Quite an endorsement.
So
How did you find out? How did you prove that?
Little side-by-side comparison.
Christgau, you dog.
So now, lo and behold, Lookout Records can't handle this band anymore. These kids need some adult management and some proper distribution as they blow up. And after signing with a new management company first, major labels are engaged in a bidding war for the next Green Day album, which will become Dookie, their third full length. So I will say that one thing you get the sense of when you're researching Green Day is these guys have maintained a certain teenage gleeful prankster attitude even until today. So imagine what it was like when they were actually 19 years old. With this newfound attention, they're having fun. They get prospective labels to fly them to Disneyland, and they even proposition one unlucky A&R guy to tattoo the band logo on his butt as a way to win their business.
Yo, that is great.
Now, the coda to that story is the guy came back, pulled his pants down, and showed him the tattoo, but they quickly realized it was marker, and so they kicked his ass out, and that deal did not go through.
Oh, dude. That guy better have gotten fired for that shit.
They also considered signing with Epitaph Records, which was the bigger but still independent punk label on the scene. It was started by the guy from Bad Religion. We talked about it in the Offspring story. They also had No Effects. But in Green Day's mind, it was like, A, why move from one indie to a bigger indie? That's actually even more of a diss to our indie label Lookout, who clearly were their friends, and they felt kind of weird about it. And B, a second, bigger indie label is great if you believe the next record's going to sell 2 times as much as the previous one. You're looking at a 50,000 seller, max. Do that, you'll be a big hit, you'll be cock of the walk at that indie label. On the other hand, if you actually believe for a second that you're going to sell 10 million records, or that that's even a possibility, you need to go as big as humanly possible. So I do think it's an example of a band that really, really believed in themselves and were willing to move on, including to turn their back to a certain extent on the community that birthed them, who were not so happy, which we'll get to, in favor of getting bigger and pursuing their dreams, which I think is admirable for young kids.
I don't know if you're going to get to it in your story, but I watched a documentary that had some interviews with Tré Cool, and he said that he would literally like go around to local punk shows and like try to argue with people that it wasn't selling out to sign with like Reprise Records. He was like, no. All these other bands have done it before. Like, here's why it was a good decision. Like, you're like one at a time and people trying to change their mind on the local scene. That's how much you actually cared about like maintaining your cred.
It was weighing heavy on him. Right. Damn.
Yeah, because it was all their friends. And it was the scene they grew up in, and it was all the other bands they played with. It was everything, right? So as you mentioned, Tom, in the end, they do sign with Reprise Records, which is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers. So truly the bigs. And they sign in part because the rep, a guy called Rob Cavallo, who ends up being the co-producer on this album, they really liked him. He was about the same age as them, a little older, kind of an older brother type to them. He liked all the same music. He had recently worked with the band The Muffs, and he came and met the band, they bonded, and part of the reason they bonded is that when he came in, well, after getting him super high, of course, he told them he could play literally any Beatles song on guitar. And they sat around and quizzed him for the next hour, and he passed.
Oh, that's awesome.
Interesting. So they were big Beatles fans, huh?
They were big Beatles fans, yes.
Oh, all right.
It explains a lot of the melodies, right? Melody forward songwriting.
Yeah.
To hear them tell it, they feel like they are recycling 3 decades worth of music into their sound. The 60s pop of things like the Beatles, but even going back farther to the girl groups that the Beatles were referencing and the Wall of Sound stuff. The 70s first wave of punk like the Sex Pistols and the Damned, but also the hardcore movement of the 80s, right? Black Flag and things like that. They liked all that stuff. So worth mentioning that this guy, Rob Cavallo, he comes from a music business family. His dad managed both the Loving Spoonful and later Prince, which is a hell of a double bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Remind me, what's the Lovin' Spoonful song I should know?
Summer in the City.
They also did Daydream. What a day for a daydream.
Yes.
What a day. Yeah.
Okay.
Do You Believe in Magic also? But I will mention, even though there was this bidding war, Rob really was he's young in his career, and he was staking some amount of his career reputation on this new band. A lot of the older generation, even around his office, just in terms of how much he agreed to work with the band and help them shape what became Dookie. And he really is a big part of how they polished up their sound, maintained their sound that they wanted to maintain, but made it bigger. And ultimately, the band would agree that he's a big part of the success of the record. He had people in his office at Reprise saying, hey man, don't put all your eggs in this basket. Don't spend all your time with this band. The Ramones never had hit songs, dude. The Sex Pistols, for all the talk about them, they didn't really sell that well, dude. Even The Clash, which you guys referenced in your tweets, some could say didn't have any real mainstream success until they slowed down and played decidedly unpunk. However, Rob is young. He sees that the culture is shifting. Nevermind by Nirvana is on everyone's mind. Okay, it's opened the door. It's blown open the door, not just to other Seattle grunge bands, but as Rob Cavallo sees it, to a wellspring of loud and fast music that young people are gonna love. Now, Green Day are, of course, aware of Nirvana as well, and they're making this move for a few reasons. They want to take what they're already good at and make it sound bigger. They are aware of the limitations of low budget, fast recording, and they have higher ambitions, right?
Yeah.
So, as we alluded to, they are already getting shit from their home club, 924 Gilman, and its patrons, because if punks are good at something, it's ostracizing anyone who doesn't fit their ever-changing, extremely narrow definition of the in-group. How dare you become successful? By the way, they are barely successful at this point.
So were they banned at this point yet, or not until?
They're basically in the process of getting banned at this point. They're fast becoming pariahs. And this is the thing that I think all these years later might be hard for people to recall or understand, because I do think it's left the culture, and it's a positive thing that it has. This idea of selling out was, I have to believe this era of time was the peak of this concept, where how dare you turn your back on the so-called underground? Because we're just coming off of the wave of the birth of indie, of college rock. It's just starting to break into the mainstream. And this is the time throughout the 80s, right, where people were trading music through the mail. They're writing fanzines, handmade, photocopied things that are getting sent around the country. It feels like your band is being taken away from you. So people were real pissed.
It's your cool thing, Right.
Yeah,
right.
it's the thing that makes me special, that I know this thing that you don't, and you've taken
It's
that
my
away from me.
secret handshake.
Yeah.
Right? Like nobody else knows it. It's between me and 5 of my best friends. And then all of a sudden you see it on TV and you're like, wait a minute, it's no longer special.
Yeah.
To Logan's point, they do play one last show at 924 Gilman under an assumed name. I believe it's Christmas of 1993. They don't want to attract too much attention or ire. And after that, they don't play there for 15 or 20 more years because they are truly banned from coming back.
Now, this is interesting because if that 924 club was not in all ages, the math would work out differently. A whole bunch of people come, they all buy booze, and you make a lot of money. When you have an all ages show, everybody comes and all you have is a destroyed bathroom and dirty floors, right? Like there's no incentive for you to have big bands there.
Well, sure, you're selling sodas and popcorn or something, right? You must be selling something.
But you don't have the same kind of margins as you do on a $9 shitty beer.
Sure. It's also a Berkeley co-op. So it's very community minded.
Okay.
And I'm all for some of the culture that's come out of Berkeley over the decades, but they could take things a little too far sometimes.
I was just surprised when you said that the Lookouts had already broken up, because that was a part of the story I'd never heard. I thought that they like poached Trey Cool and then signed to a major label. And I was like, oh, that explains why. There was some bad blood there for sure.
You know what? I'm not actually sure that the Lookouts had broken up. All I could get from these guys was that Trey Cool was available. But I did watch extensive interviews with Larry Livermore, and he talked about feeling betrayed, but he didn't talk about stealing Trey Cool. So I think that was not part of the story. For whatever reason, Trey Cool was not in that band anymore. Larry Livermore and Lookout did feel like Green Day maybe went behind their back a little bit to get that new manager and take this, what they all saw as a huge risk at the time, which was to try to get a major label deal, and, you know, maybe just didn't communicate as well about it with Larry Livermore and Lookout Records as they could have.
You know, a disillusioned 17-year-old. It's been in the punk scene for 5 years already. Ready to move on, maybe.
That's right. That's right. It's a long time to be moshing.
Grizzled old 17-year-old.
It has got to be remarkably hard not to feel a little bitterness if you're like, we put out their last album and then their next album sells 10 million fucking copies over the course of like 5 years, right? Like that is generational wealth. That is basically like you were right there and you didn't quite get it. But I agree with your earlier assessment, Rob, that like Dookie wouldn't have been Dookie if they'd stuck with Lookout.
Right. They're about to get a huge budget, and the distribution is everything. And we've heard this on so many of the stories we've done. It simply wouldn't have been that big a hit. It might have gone 2x, but the record company just doesn't have the staff power or the reach or the wherewithal to handle something like this.
Mm-hmm. Or the marketing and promotion. You got to let all the DJs know this is the new thing that we want to play. You got to get the music video financed and made and in the hands of the right people.
Absolutely.
When we talk about distribution, we're literally talking about getting the album or cassette printed and then on a truck and spread all over the country. And when you're a small record label who has $2,000 to their names, you simply don't have that infrastructure to do that.
Yeah. Because it's still a relationship-based business, right? To effectively, if you're trying to get your record or your CD or whatever on the stores at record stores around the country or around the world. And yeah, there are some distribution networks, but if you're not top of the call sheet and you don't really know how to get your record placed the right way, they're either not going to take your call. This is the challenge, and we've heard it just so many times with so many bands, right? At every point in a band's success, they realize if they want to get to the next level, they will have to move on.
Another part of the reality of that distribution is, say you're selling it to Sam Goody. Sam Goody doesn't take those records and just say like, I'll pay you when they sell. Sam Goody buys those records from you, right? So getting them to agree to buy 1,000 units to put in their store, like they're never going to do that unless you're Warner Brothers coming and saying, I want you to buy 1,000 units of my record because I'm fucking Warner Brothers. And like, yes, we'll buy 1,000 units from Warner Brothers.
Yeah. We trust you. If you're selling it, it's going to sell. Yeah.
Because we're also going to be promoting it. We're making an MTV music video. We're going to make sure the DJs in LA play it, which is going to make the other radio stations play it. And we haven't even mentioned the logistics idea of like, well, I can only print so many because I only have so much budget, and I'd like when they sell to print more perhaps, but how do I know how many to print? Do I know how many to send to you on a truck? It gets very complicated very fast.
Damn. Yeah,
I think the reality is, and I think this is true in a lot of industries, that to get to the next level of success, you just might have to change a lot of what you're doing, and that includes the people around you, your team. Okay, so again, Kerplunk sounds pretty similar to Dookie. I gotta give it credit. The difference is in the clarity of the recording, and I think a nice boost in the complexity of the songwriting, and maybe those dynamics that we talked about. But it is more, it's a kind of a subtle upgrade, honestly, which is maybe not what I was expecting.
It is a subtle upgrade. What I was mostly struck by is that the band just sounds a lot tighter on Dookie.
Yeah.
You can tell that they have been hitting it on the road and just like really tightening those screws, not even as individual players, but as a unit over the course of those couple of years.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And part of it's just time. They spent more time. So Dookie's recorded in 1993 at Berkeley's Fantasy Studios. Their budget for Kerplunk was $2,000. Their budget for Dookie, $100,000. So a 50x difference. And I don't think it's possible they even spent this money based on what I'm hearing. They spent like 4 to 5 weeks doing it. And again, you might be reasonably listening to it and going, what did they spend the time on? There's not a ton of info, but I did hear Rob Cavallo talking about how in that 5 weeks, they spent a ton of time dialing in the sound of individual instruments. Things like guitar tone, drum mic placement, all of the above. That's before they even get to what you talked about, Tom, getting the takes really, really tight. When you're going that fast on drums, it would be very easy to let an errant thing happen and just say, you know what, it's part of the energy of the take. They very purposely held themselves to a higher standard for this.
I did see something where Mike Dirnt basically said when they got the budget for Dookie, their thinking was, we'll make a record, and even if it's not successful, we'll have enough money to like eat burritos and pay rent for the next year. And so we'll be okay. I think they were anticipating having some leftover money. And I also saw something where Rob Cavallo said that Billy Joe Armstrong did all of the vocal takes for the album in 2 days.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Which that's ridiculous.
It's because, like you said, the band was extremely well rehearsed. So for as silly and goofy as these guys are, they knew what they wanted to do. And by all accounts, they took this process very seriously. They were in there to work on the material that they had been working on the road, songs and arrangements they had already worked out. They felt pretty darn tight about, including something from the Kerplunk album called Welcome to Paradise, which they felt got tighter and better playing it live, so they re-recorded it for this album. And when we go play that song, I thought it would be interesting. I included it on the focus list for you guys, the Kerplunk version and the Dookie version, because we'll play clips of them back to back when we play the song and we talk about it, because they really aren't different on an arrangement level. But it's a great example sonically of what this process we're talking about of dialing in tones, making the band tighter, actually does.
I've never recorded music in sort of any real capacity. Obviously, talking to 3 guys here from the Chop, so the experts in this kind of field. Is that as crazy as it sounds to record vocal takes in 2 days? That sounds insane to a layman or whatever, but I wanted to get some background. Yeah.
Absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. Just from the standpoint of your voice gets tired. And thinking about how many tracks he has to record vocals on, I mean, we're talking 14 songs. And I don't know, Rob, if they recorded more than the 14 and they cut it down.
They did.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say it was 18 songs. You got 18 tracks that you have to do recording on. A lot of times you're doubling that up. So you're singing over yourself again to give it a little bit more beef. You got to do all the harmonies. Just taxing. It's so taxing on your voice. And you also then have to be able to do everything right the first time and not sit there. I mean, I've worked for over an hour to try to get one line recorded that I just couldn't do.
The difference, though, I'm going to push back a little bit. I do think it's impressive, and it shows that they took a workmanlike approach and that they were prepared and that they knew what they wanted. So absolutely, right? But I think in the grand scheme of things, the difference maker is that you've been singing the songs every night. You have a really clear idea of what you want to do and how to do it. And so while I totally agree, there is a fatigue element. And when we're in the studio, we tend to break up the vocal takes for that exact reason. But I will say that one of the challenges of getting vocal takes is if you haven't sung the song 100 times already, there's a lot of choices in the midst, not just hitting the right notes, but how do I want to approach that note, things like that. I'm under the impression that they had worked all that stuff out very clearly. I also think that I think the harmonies are Dirnt. He definitely sings the harmonies on stage, but I'm not 100% sure if he's doing it on the record.
Okay. Yeah, I guess he does get backing vocals as a credit, so good for him. There are some times where I can hear Billy Joe as the backing vocalist, though, as well. Yeah.
I buy it, and he probably doubled sometimes. I'm not saying it's not impressive. I think it shows their seriousness at this opportunity, but I also think it implies that he has been thinking about what he wanted to do beforehand and prepping for the recording. And in that sense, it is impressive, for sure.
It's remarkably pro for somebody who was as young as they are. Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. Interesting footnote about these sessions, speaking of the extra songs, is they had fully written and demoed the song Good Riddance, Time of Your Life, for this album. But Billy Joe didn't see it working for Dookie or maybe for this band at all.
Oh.
It eventually got added to the album cycle 2 albums after this, and it became one of their most enduring hits from there.
That's interesting. It would have stuck out like a sore thumb with what's on the album. So I actually think it was a good idea to pump the brakes on it.
Totally. But again, like a kind of a mature decision of because this is a good song. You're like, I have this good song, but I'm going to leave it off purposefully.
Yeah. Whew.
I've never been like, well, we recorded a great version of this really good song that I wrote. Let's just not put that in the album.
Yeah. Let's not use it. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
I agree. It's a mature decision. And another thing I think we have to give Green Day credit for, which goes outside the scope of our story, is that they did continue to evolve and ride this line of staying true to themselves. In other words, American Idiot and their other successes later, their other hit songs, they sound recognizable to the band on this record, but they do reflect some evolution in sound, willingness to be more vulnerable, willingness to try different kinds of things. And it's not that common that bands are willing to do that, especially after they've gotten a huge dose of success. So good on them.
I think Insomniac was maybe their next record. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's like arguably one of their more punk sounding records, like on their Pantheon, kind of angry, fast, straightforward kind of thing. So definitely weren't afraid to go back to their roots on that or whatever.
Yeah. You're also under so much pressure. You put out your first album or your first major release like this and it's a huge hit. The record label's like, what do you got for us? Like, we need something right now. So you're not exactly like, well, we're going to experiment and evolve our sound. They're like, put a fucking album out, guys. Come on, just put something out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something they struggled with, and we'll get to that in the story. But now we are at the release of Dookie. It gets released on February 1st, 1994, and that brings us to our favorite segment on the show. It is Green Day's By the Numbers.
Yeah.
I'm buckling up right now.
First number I want to throw out to you is 9,000. That was the initial press run of Dookie, and it sold out very quickly. Rob and Warner Brothers had bet on the fact that if Green Day could sell 10,000 copies of Kerplunk on an indie, that they could maybe sell 10x that, 100,000 copies of Dookie by pushing them to a national stage. Maybe an outside chance of 200K sales. But instead, let's take a look at our next number. Over the coming 2 years of this album cycle, they ended up selling 15 million copies.
Jesus.
In 2 years?
Over the course of 1994 and a few lucky breaks for the band, which we will document, Dookie rockets to multi-platinum. Now, these days, I should point out, it is certified double diamond or 22 times platinum in the U.S. alone.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers here of it was released in February of 1994, and by February of 1995, it sold 6 million copies in the U.S.
Holy shit.
6 million copies in the U.S. in the first year of release. That's like Thriller numbers. That's out of control.
Wild. People were ready for it. They snatched it up. Going a little back in the story, which is something fun I found. The next number I want to throw out to you is number 5. As in the age at which Billy Joe recorded his first vocal to a record. It's on a single called Look for Love. This is after a local record store owner noticed his talent and suggested putting him on the track. And quick bonus number, I saw that versions of the original 45 are selling for $550.
Looking for Love as sung by a 5-year-old?
Look for Love.
Oh, Look for Love. Okay.
I found it on a blog. I don't believe it's available on Spotify, but you can find the recording.
Okay, all right.
I thought you were going to say he was like already part of the Gilman scene for 4 years at that point.
That's punk, baby.
Yeah.
And another number I want to give out to you is 2. as in the number of Las Vegas radio stations that officially banned Green Day's music from their airwaves after Billy Joe went on a rant in Oakland recently about the Athletics baseball team leaving his almost hometown of Oakland for Las Vegas over money.
Yeah, fuck that. That's stupid.
Don't hate that at all.
No, yeah. I guess what? The two Oakland teams, the Raiders and the Athletics, both got taken away by Las Vegas.
And technically the Warriors.
Well, the Warriors just moved to San Francisco, but
Still, though, it's meaningful to people in Oakland.
Oh, it definitely is. It definitely is, yeah.
Definitely more meaningful than the people in Vegas, I assume.
Yeah.
Just the embarrassment of riches already. Oakland needed that.
Yeah, Oakland doesn't have a lot. Their punk scene sold out, clearly. And now they...
Now, I say that sitting here in Sacramento, California, where the Athletics are temporarily using our minor league baseball stadium, but I haven't gone to see them just yet, so take that with a grain of salt. The last number I want to throw out to you is 600 and counting. That's the beautiful audience members like you who are helping us build a community over on Patreon, where right now, for free, there's a poll up about this very episode. It's a comment thread. You can continue the conversation with your fellow listeners. Tell us what we got right. Tell us what we got oh so wrong. I'm sure you have opinions. And vote on whether this album is truly a must listen before you die. We love you.
I cannot wait to see the comment thread on this one. It is going to be juicy. I know we got a lot of diehard true punk fans out there. Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm sure they have opinions about Green Day. But look, we love you. We thank you. Support us by joining up for free, getting in those comment threads. Your participation is what sustains us and keeps us pushing forward every single week. Okay, back to the story of Dookie. So at first, they released the single Longview. It's the first single, and it's not catching on like they'd hoped. Rob Cavallo talks about calling up LA rock radio station K-Rock, known for helping break new bands and leading other smaller market stations to add songs into the rotation. He'd call them multiple times from every different phone number he could find, using different voices, and request Green Day's Longview to help get it going.
I love the idea of him pretending to be like, a 12-year-old girl. Can you play Green Day? And the phone rings again, and it's, can you play Green Day?
That's the kind of manager you want in your corner, though, man.
Yeah, I will agree. That's good, yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, interesting Green Day starts to build slowly, especially as the Longview video starts getting into MTV's rotation in the spring. Keep in mind, MTV was the king for getting bands national exposure. This is where I first saw and heard about the band. And for that video, Green Day get handed a modest budget, and they get asked which director they'd like to work with. And they choose the guy who had made a Primus video.
Yeah, another Bay Area legend.
Yes,
there you go.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And they end up filming it in their basement apartment in Berkeley, where they were actually living. So
that's cool.
With that video getting played, sales continue to mount. And from there, 1994, slowly but surely, turns into Green Day's year. They play Conan O'Brien. They get added to the Lollapalooza tour. They release their second single and music video for Basket Case, which blows open the sales as they get added to the summer's biggest festival event, Woodstock 94.
Oh, shit.
I remember watching this.
Wow, that was like their coming out party. You know what I mean? Like that's...
Yeah, I remember watching that live. Yeah.
That's huge.
I rewatched the Woodstock set, and it's in the middle of the day. It had been raining. Green Day's delivering a high-energy performance. They sound great. Nothing too surprising. They tell the crowd to start throwing mud at each other. And throughout the set, that escalates to where the mud is being thrown on the stage. Mud-drenched fans are climbing up on the stage diving off. Mud eventually hits Billy Joe's guitar, rendering it useless. He hands it off to another guy. He keeps singing. He doesn't have a backup or anything. He just hands it off.
Of course.
The other two guys keep playing, keep a groove going. Billy's just throwing mud back at the crowd. At one point, he's just got the mic. It's like an SM58 standard mic in his hands. He's on his knees, and he's just pounding the stage with it to the beat of the song. It really turned into something. It's chaos. It's exciting. And it truly ended in chaos. They had to be rushed off the stage. Mike Dirnt ends up getting accidentally punched by a security guard who thought he was a mud-soaked fan. He gets several of his teeth broken.
Damn, my God.
They rush him off the stage to get the hell out of there. Now, it's notable in part because it's a moment where they are exactly the same age as the audience. These guys are still 21 years old.
Jeez.
That's fucking awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
And for context, Kurt Cobain was like 25 when Nevermind was blowing up. And at that age, that difference, it makes a difference, right? And in addition to that, one other thing happened in 1994, which is in April of that same year, Kurt took his own life. So audiences were kind of even extra primed for the next big thing to land. And it does. Here with Green Day at Woodstock, millions of people watch it on pay-per-view at home. And that's basically when it goes platinum, when things really explode. By the end of that summer, they're playing arenas. They win the Best Alternative Album Grammy, beating out The Downward Spiral by Nine Inch Nails, as well as God Shuffled His Feet by Crash Test Dummies. I will never miss an opportunity to plug Crash Test Dummies. And since then, Green Day, and specifically Dookie, have been called the Beatles of the pop-punk generation. It created a clear dividing line before and after in this thing called punk music, or maybe pop-punk music, depending on how angry you are at me. Green Day rocketed to stardom, but as we mentioned, their follow-up called Insomniac, though well-reviewed, and still sold 3 million copies, by the way, but it was considered a major disappointment in relation to Dookie. Then came Nimrod, which was a big diversion sound-wise, and finally included the song Time of Your Life, which has since been used in a million high school graduation photo montages. And Green Day are sitting around as arena rock stars. They're thinking about kicking off the legacy portion of their career when, just a weird little anecdote to end our story, something we touched on briefly in our American Idiot episode. Flash forward to 2002, they write and record an album called Cigarettes and Valentines, a return to their Dookie hard and fast roots. They have a bunch of songs left over that they like, but don't belong on that album. And according to the band, they debated which project to pursue first, the completed album or the leftovers. According to lore, which has been propagated repeatedly by the band, but who knows, these master tapes for Cigarettes and Valentines were stolen and never recovered, and instead they pursued the so-called leftovers, which became smash hit American Idiot, which sold something like 16 million copies.
Wow.
Jesus, God damn.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Oh.
When you mentioned that they were kind of primed a little bit, or they like there was a space opened up for them in 94 because of Kurt Cobain and Nirvana and all that, I was also thinking about the space that kind of was left in 03 around that time, because Blink-182 had just broken up as well.
Fair enough.
That's not to say that I think American Idiot probably would have kicked the shit out of Blink-182 at that time in their career, as much as it pains me to say. But like they didn't have to compete. It was just like open sales for Green Day again at that point.
Interesting. I noticed American Idiot sold a lot better in Europe than Dookie did. So there's something about that message at that time where people in Europe were like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's kind of perfect, or at least I enjoy hearing about a band's success going down in this way. They come up in this organic manner. They hit the big time, staying true to themselves with Dookie. Then they hit a low period where they're feeling all that pressure to repeat their success. I mean, they're still making good money and, like I said, selling a decent amount of records and even having a hit or two to their catalog. And then they come back, which is so rare, with a new hit. They're discovered by a new generation.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a lot of people probably see that. They think of that at the first when they think of Green Day, the songs from that record.
Yeah. When I think of Aerosmith, I still think of the stuff of Get a Grip, you know?
Yeah, same. I was just, that's so funny, Tom. It's like we're the same person. I was thinking Aerosmith as well, and that Armageddon era Aerosmith, right? And the
after a very fallow period in the 80s. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's
it's
wild.
true.
After Pump.
It's
terrible.
true.
I think leaning into the political aspect does kind of help you play to the young kids again, even though, I mean, they were probably 30 at that time, somewhere around there. So not like, I know it's probably geriatric for the punk scene, but like it probably does allow you to piece those two generations together. And then when the kids come out to the live show, you can play them the other stuff, right? Like the long views and all the old stuff. And then they're like, oh, what the hell is this? You know?
Totally. And it continues to help their catalog. And to your point of them maintaining, even in their now middle age, a sense of puckish juvenility, they're very much known for shenanigans and making up stories. So that whole story about Cigarettes and Valentines the internet is a little skeptical about it. I don't know if we'll ever really know if it was stolen or if it got salvaged for parts or or what happened, but
Well, you guys remember that double album that the Chop wrote, but it was stolen. And it was a masterpiece.
Yeah, it was our songs in the key of life. Yes.
Yes, it was. And it's just the damnedest thing. No other copies or anywhere. It was so unfortunate.
So another thing that the internet sleuths think could have happened is that they maybe released Cigarettes and Valentines already, mostly intact under a different band name called The Network. So this is a band that came out pretending to be a brand new band. They wore masks. They used accents to conceal their identities, and they trashed Green Day consistently in the press.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
This is awesome.
That's fucking awesome.
And though it was speculated that it was in fact Green Day for years, they put out a record and they did a tour, but it was revealed like 10 years later that it was in fact Green Day, and then they admitted that.
That's awesome.
That's great, man.
The band doesn't say it has anything to do with this lost album. So anyway, who knows, right? It's a fun story. To date, Green Day have released 14 full-length albums. They continue to tour as the same three friends from Northern California and sell out stadiums all over the place.
Man.
Thus ends our story. Should we get into some songs, boys?
Let's do it.
Hell yes, I am pumped.
All right. We are going to play a clip of that very first single off this record. It is called Longview.
I know that the listeners can't see this, but I'm going to have to sheepishly hold this up and say that I have been learning all of the songs on Dookie. And yes, I have a pick here. I've been playing with a pick.
Oh, my.
And you
Holding
cannot
a
get
pick.
the sound that, especially at the beginning of the song, it's just like so stark because the bass is out front. You can't get that sound without a pick. And Mike Dirnt plays this amazingly bouncy bass line that is deceptively specific, not hard to play, but it's like very specific to play. There's a kind of a half-assed way to play it and then like the right way to play it. And it complements that drum beat so well. They just come in and you're just like, you guys sound so fucking good. Like everything sounds beautifully recorded. The drums are mixed with like a 3D sense to them.
Yes. Totally. I had a note on the drums there. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember just like the first time putting this record on, like kind of skipping a little bit. I remember distinctly being in my parents' basement, you know, they're upstairs talking. So I'm just skipping through and like Longview comes on and I'm like, I hear that come through and just like definitely catches your attention early and doesn't really let go.
Yeah, this immediately jumped out to me. As I said before, this is the first note I ever heard of them via the MTV video, and it still sounds different. The tribal beat, that is up there with memorable bass lines. People, that's one of the ones that people will call to memory.
Yeah.
So they really did a great job with it, and it's not cookie cutter Green Day. Like even I, after listening to this record, have a temptation to think of them as a band that just applies a verse, chorus to every song, loud, quiet. I mean, they do a little bit of that here, and I think that's a reasonable criticism of the album and maybe even the band. But I do think this elevates that format with the writing of the bass line, of the drum beat. And even the lyrics, I heard someone say that it reads like an episode of Beavis and Butthead, which I think is right in with the zeitgeist.
Totally. And, you know, for a single to play on the radio, to have a music video, to pick a song that has multiple words that you can't say on the radio or on MTV.
In the first minute, they curse 3 times.
Yeah. It's an interesting choice. I always feel like maybe it was
right.
like a badge of honor thing. Like they're like, we're still kind of punk. Fuck you. Like we're going to put a song out here that says smell like shit and talking about masturbation as our lead single. Yeah.
Right. This might be the first time in 1001 Album Complaint history where I, in my cover band days, did 3 of these songs on the focus list.
Wow, nicely done.
We used to do Longview, Basket Case, and Welcome to Paradise at different stages, not all the same night or whatever. But I had a note about this song where, you know, Billy Joe, it's interesting. He sounds British when he sings and then speaks like an American, which is usually the opposite.
Sure.
You know, like you've got people in England who sing like they're American. And there's some lines at the end of this song that I never knew what he said, and it became a joke, like a running gag, where I would just mumble the last line, where it's like, "I'm so damn bored, I'm going blind, and never bothered to learn the lyrics. I would mumble it. Nobody ever knew because I tried to use kind of a little fake accent. It was perfect. So anyway, the glory days.
Yes, he definitely is giving us a little fake accent throughout this, a little bit of a snarl.
Billy Idol.
Yeah, his vocal delivery is the perfect mix of disdain and excitement.
You know, I prefer this faux British accent to what I feel like came later, which was like the super LA affectation that I felt like you got on a lot of the punk bands that came out of the LA scene. They got popular later. I prefer this a little bit more to that, but overall, I mean, it's just a fucking fun song. Good, fun, stupid song.
So one other thing I want to note, and the listeners can go listen to it on our companion playlist, is that Billy Joe, I read in an interview, said that he was specifically thinking of the Pretenders song Message of Love and thinking, I want to write a song like that. And if you listen to that song, you will know what he's talking about, for sure.
Interesting.
I do want to say, like, as much as like the A bass line, we'll call it, is good in that, like that also like post-chorus B sort of bass line that then they like play with throughout the rest of the song is also like really great too in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say they do a nice thing in the outro, which is a kind of a common trope for them, but they do a good job with it, where he plays that little bit of lead guitar, things kind of chill out, and they take you through the end of the song. I think that part is actually really cool and could go without notice potentially.
Yeah, like remarkably mature and insightful decisions made for such a young band.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the next song on our focus list. It's called Basket Case.
So good.
This is the best song on the record for me.
Again, like you said, the intro of Longview was different, right? You know, the tribal drums and the bass line. And then this song there's no drums. It's just him and his guitar and a voice for the first 30 seconds.
You could not ask for a better rock and roll intro. They build so much excitement and suspense for the band to kick in, and then Trey Cool does not disappoint.
Oh no, comes in like a freight train halfway through the chorus.
With that fill.
So
Right.
you kind of think that like you're going to get the whole chorus just down with just the guitar, but no, they like kick in halfway through. It's like, that's such a smart fucking move.
It's Animal from Muppets-esque. And here's the other thing. They do something that bands rarely do, which is like kind of the double intro. He comes in like a freight train, and he comes all the way back out again.
Yeah.
Yes! Stops for a second, and then the song continues. Yeah.
Was that chord kind of in that progression right after the first chorus, what you were talking about a little bit earlier, Rob, of like where it like, I don't want to call it stank per se, but like it's like a little bit, is it a minor chord or like does he hit the note on that? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I don't know the chords. Maybe these other guys do. But this was, in the intro specifically, that thing I'm talking about where Billy's playing is covering the drum part effectively, because there are no drums, right? So he's going bam, 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 and he's hitting every note, but he's using it like a drum kit. I hope that's clear to people. Like Dave Grohl plays guitar like that sometimes because he is a drummer.
Yeah.
And I've heard him comment on that for songs like Everlong. You can almost hear that he's a drummer in the guitar part.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you'll notice that in this song, Billy purposely backs off of that approach later when the drums are in. So he's doing it very purposefully.
You know, I love the bridge in this song, and it is 5 seconds long. It's so good. It just kind of like just breaks it up just enough so that then they can kind of just go in and just do the chords for the verse again, like nothing special. They clearly were like, well, we can't just repeat the verse again. We got to give us something a little bit. So they just that little grasping to control. So I better ho. And then that's it. That's the whole bridge. And it works perfectly. Like, I feel like I've been overwriting bridges my entire life now. I gotta like strip them all back.
All right.
Right. Yeah, it's Excellent.
Yeah, it's kind of just like the zenith of what they were going for. I think if you gave just this one track, it'd be like, okay, yeah, like the high harmonies are perfect in it, all that kind of stuff, and so
Yeah.
you can't get much better than that, at least on this record anyway, right?
I also love that in the official lyrics on Spotify, at the end of the second chorus, I went to look it up because I was like, I've never been able to figure out what he says. It's like, am I just paranoid? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, I'm like, what does he say? And in the lyrics on Spotify, it says, I don't know. And I think that that's like a meta comment where they're like, I actually don't know what he's saying. Like, we can't figure out what
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
He definitely does not say, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, it's funny because when was it? Last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about Siamese Dream. And we talked a lot about guitar tones and dialing things in. And there's not as much of that going on here. But they did dial in this heavy guitar tone. Do not mistake yourself and think that they just turned the amp on and cranked it to 10 and they got this. This took work. This took some manicuring of the tone, for sure.
Where it sits in the mix.
What they didn't do was alter it a whole lot between songs. Like it's a very consistent tone throughout the album, but it's a purposeful tone.
Well, that's why Siamese Dream took like 7 months or whatever. This took 5 weeks, probably.
Yeah.
The only real critique I have for the album as a whole is that darn high harmony that it kind of just shows up in every single song too. And so when you're like the melodies are compelling or whatever, and it kind of feels one trick pony a little bit, but like in this one, it just happens to work like fantastically.
Yeah, and I can see why they did it a lot. But you're right, it is there a lot.
I figure if it hit 3 times, that's enough, right?
Yeah, they have a cookie cutter approach. I think that's a totally fair complaint. But I do also think that they write good, simple melodies, and they have a command of how to keep it interesting enough to keep my ear from not getting totally bored by this punk music. So while I agree in the sense that I'm not one to just put this on front to back in my normal life, maybe it would be more like half the record would be enough for me at any given moment, but it's not exactly their fault.
And I will say, I put this on with my daughter and her friends in the car, and they're like 9 years old, and they were all like, this is really good. I like this music. I was like, there you go.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, it's very easy to like, certainly.
Let's go on to the next song we're going to talk about. It's called When.
It stands out as not just the joke of the 3 chords, right? This really has a nice progression.
This has a 4th chord.
This is okay. You're right.
And one of them's a minor.
Yeah, I didn't learn this or anything, but this just sticks out to me as different on the album.
It grooves.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it definitely stood out to me too. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I quote unquote discovered this one myself on the CD. It eventually became one of the singles, the later singles, but I remember thinking it was a really cool song before that happened. And I do think it stands out because of the rhythm, which breaks up the rhythm for most of the rest of the album. It's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it. I mean, Longview could be said to do that as well. But in general, they have a pretty consistent approach to rhythm, and this breaks that.
Forget where I saw it, so I can't shout him out, but I think Mike Dirnt just did an interview rather recently where he calls out that Green Day wasn't afraid to swing, and you can definitely tell with the bass line here is definitely kind of has a bit of a swingy element to it, and definitely keeps you from getting bored with just the power chords over top of it.
Totally. It's a lot of little hammer on. I was kind of very pleasantly surprised learning a bunch of these songs and being like, wow, there's a lot more going on here. I thought it was going to be a lot more of dun 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 just in my memory.
Yeah.
But it's not that at all.
Yeah, they always find a way to make that bass stand out and cut through in the mix too. I think it's a really nice mix.
Yeah, and which is hard with a guitar that's playing distorted power chords, usually kind of low on the neck, because Mike Dirnt also does play kind of high up on the neck. He's playing up at the second octave of a lot of the notes available there, and so he's right in the same sonic range that Billy Joe is playing a lot of the time.
Could get muddy real easily. For some reason, I was also thinking about, I know there are lots of trios out there, but the other trio I was thinking about that takes a really opposite approach is the Police, where the bass player there plays so simply to hold it down, kind of lets the drummer be the lead instrument in a way, and the guitar is like pure atmosphere. Whereas I think in this band, the drums are almost pure atmosphere, even though he's ripping it all the time. The bass is the lead, and the guitar has to function rhythmically 100% of the time.
You know, maybe that's the secret to keeping the band together. Let the bass be the lead.
Uh-oh.
Otherwise, you'll hate each other.
What have I done?
I remember this video distinctly too. I wonder if they like took another page out of like the filming in the basement. Were they just like walking around?
Yeah, walking around the streets of San Francisco. Yeah, going through the BART stations and whatnot. Yeah.
All right, let's move it along to talk about Welcome to I just want to play for the listeners because this is the song that they had recorded for Kerplunk. It's basically the exact same song, the exact same arrangement. You'll recognize all the parts. I'm going to intersplice them with the Dookie version that they re-recorded, and hopefully that'll give you a sense of what we're talking about, what recording fidelity, caring about sonics gets you.
The song on Dookie. Oh, it's a great song. But I also I feel like the version is just tighter, better. It's the best version of it that they're going to get, you know?
Yeah, I wanted to play it because I think you rarely get a chance to really compare apples to apples in that way and sort of see where the money went, money and time and band tightness went. And this is very stark because they changed so little. By the way, Tom, this is written about West Oakland when Billy Joe was living in a warehouse there, which Tom and I know because it's where our practice space was for a long time.
Oh, jeez.
And heads up, kids, if they have band practice spaces in your neighborhood, it's not a good neighborhood.
It's not a good neighborhood. We would definitely see ladies of the night plying their wares. I remember one time we were like standing outside after practice and we all had our instruments and these two guys just ran up and were like, some guy just stuck a shotgun in my face and robbed us. And we're like, we're going to go back inside now. We're going to get out of here. We're going to get out of here. And that was West Oakland when it got a lot better. It was a lot nicer than it was in the 90s.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's good to have the stories confirmed. I was always wondering about that. Like, is it exaggerated for the sake of art? So it sounds like pretty accurate.
This song does a thing that I often think, I've talked about this before. I think choruses work better when they are ascending, not descending. But this chorus works so well because that descend line, it's simple, but like it's very well executed. The harmonies kind of carry you through it. And then I think that the hard stop, welcome to paradise, like really kind of ties it all together and makes it just a really powerful chorus. This is the thing that I found myself singing along to, just walking down the hallway, just being like, attention to the back streets and the broken homes.
Yeah. It's got a very 60s melody to it. I thought of the Monkees. When those harmonies, when you have that drone harmony hovering and then the melody line descends, and I got kind of like a California 60s vibe to it.
I think the breakdown in this song is really cool. It might be my favorite part musically.
Totally. Totally. Like you said, it's the Mike Dirnt like lead bass, you know, like he really does function as like the melodic lead of the band, and he really flexes it on that breakdown.
Totally. But then Billy Joe gets some riffs in there. It's kind of that like menacing, creeping up on you vibe.
And Trey comes in with the ride cymbal on the bell right when you're about to reach that fever pitch. You know, it's like it builds really well.
I'm surprised how cleanly it then comes back after that too, because it does kind of feel like they go off into left field pretty far and then just like circle it back with like just like a little bit of a drum fill. So
yeah, all quite good at their instruments. Totally not punk, and all making very tasteful choices. Also, totally not punk, but it somehow, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, there's an element in a song like this to me, and perhaps throughout the record, of AC/DC, of like that little bit of simple riffage to get to maximum rock, where I think first wave punk was a little less concerned with that kind of thing, and just more concerned with going hard and fast and kind of screaming at you and creating energy. And so to me, this is where some of their, not just their 60s taste, but some of their 70s taste comes into play too. Okay, let's move on to the last song we're going to talk about. It's called All By Myself. Look, guys, I know we often have a low point on the record. I tried to find a low point. I actually really searched through the songs. I struggled with it a bit. I couldn't find one that I felt genuinely stood out as bad. Other than this one, which I don't really mind. I don't think anything they're doing is a failure here on this record. That's what I'm trying to say. So,
Yeah.
Wasn't this a hidden track, if I recall? This was the first hidden track I ever remember seeing as a kid. Like, wait, what?
And how cool was that? How fucking cool was that back in the day?
Like, you let it run and you're like, wait, 53 minutes? Or whatever it happened to be, right? After a...
let's explain that for a second. It was a secret track.
Yeah, right.
Because that concept is gone now, right? It's
Yeah,
basically
sure.
impossible in the streaming area. But on the Dookie CD, this A was not its own separate track. There was 2 minutes of silence after FOD, the last song, and it maintained the same track, and you had to sit through the silence, and then this kicked on. And so back then, it really did feel like a discovery. And I agree. I think it's the first time I became aware of a secret track. When I think of the concept of secret tracks, I think of this one.
Yeah. It's great. It's so memorable. I was all by myself.
And it's the perfect track, too. For a...
Yeah.
It really is. He starts laughing halfway through, which just makes it even more charming, you know?
And fellas, there's a fucking key change in this song.
There is.
They legitimately changed key in this song. I don't know if they changed key on the record. They changed key in this song.
Yeah.
the fact that like they broke it out into its own track was very novel to me, because I remember exactly like you guys did, just like having to wait in that silence, and the kids will never know. Maybe they'll figure it out, buying CDs again.
And it's so short, you didn't want to fast forward past it or use the digital thing on the CD because it's 30 seconds. And so it's safer to just wait the 2 minutes.
And worth mentioning that in the streaming era, not only is it its own track, but they also cut the silence. So it's not even like you can recreate the experience of the CD. It just goes right between the tracks. So it's just an interesting vestige of its time. It only worked on that one technology that's now gone. But the lore behind this song is that it's a one-take joke song recorded during a party at the studio where Trey Cool busted out a guitar. There's people around drinking beers. He busted out a guitar. The engineer hit record, and this came out.
Wow, it sounds so belabored. I can't imagine. I can't believe this was a one taker.
We know by myself. Yeah, we've really slaved over this one.
I will say too, though, part of why the secret track was fun is because you felt a sense of discovery as a listener. And this reinforced to me as a listener, in case it wasn't already abundantly clear, which of course now to me it is, that they are juvenile and playful and silly.
And talk about jerking off a lot.
They do.
Right. And not at all hard like a lot of the punk movement is trying to be. And that did appeal to me when this came out.
Definitely. That's why the punks hated it, though, because suburban kids who had never set foot in a punk club were able to like it and enjoy it, which is stupid, but, there you are.
Fair enough. But is it enough? Is that hate of all the punks enough to vote this bad boy on the list of albums you must hear before you die? We are going to send it first to Tom.
It's a pretty easy yes to me. Not only was it a very enjoyable listen, and part of that was nostalgia, but part of it's because it's just a well-written pop album. But I think that you have to look at it in terms of importance and say that it really did help to define where rock music went after grunge. You got all the Sum 41s and the Blink 182s and all those people. They never would have been the record-selling behemoths that they were if it wasn't for Dookie paving the way for them. So on an enjoyment level, yes. On a legacy level, yes. And on a nostalgia level, yes. So there we go.
It's 4 yeses already.
Yes, across the board. Yeah.
Logan, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, pretty easy for me. Pretty easy yes for me as well, amongst everything else Tom was talking about. I also kind of have a hot take that I think you need to listen to the highest grossing records of all time, regardless of how good or bad they might be, just to see what the culture was saying and all that. So like that kind of just gets put in that pantheon a little bit. But going back to it, it was an easy listen. I think is going to be part of my regular rotation again, or at the very least, I'm going to remember to go back to it now. So yeah, yes for me.
Whenever you're not listening to the Bodyguard soundtrack, I assume.
See, very important listening.
Yes. Yeah.
Like you listen to Frozen, you need to know what people are doing now as well, like all that stuff. So it's very important for the cultural zeitgeist.
I mostly agree with you. Adam, what say you?
All right. It's a no. Brainer.
Nice timing.
It's a no-brainer. This is a yes.
How churlish of you.
The heads flung around when I said, I said no. It was, wait, what? Yeah, this is awesome for everything that Tom and Logan said. I totally agree with. The nostalgia aspect is crazy on this one. This really did take me back to playing in a garage as a teenager. So it was a lot of fun this week. And I think it does hold a spot in the punk history. So it's a definite yes.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to make it a clean sweep. It's an easy yes for me as well. It's a ton of fun. I think not just for nostalgia reasons, but because in addition to being enjoyable and well written at a time, as we talked about, when music was decidedly getting a little unfun, a little dark, have some fun, damn it. Don't take yourself too seriously. But on top of all that, it showcases a band that sounds wise beyond their years. They're exercising restraint in their arrangement, in their songwriting, in their playing that is truly impressive. They sound way better than 99.9% of 20-year-olds you're going to hear in any given garage.
Yes, absolutely.
That I can assure you. So for that reason, plus its legacy, it goes on the list. Nice. Congratulations, Green Day. You're on the list, baby.
Good pick, Logan. Nice. Yeah.
Good pick, Logan. And Logan, thank you so much for coming on, for supporting Stay Puft, and for coming on the show, picking such a fun album for us. This really was fun to dive into.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, man. Really had a great time.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. The only thing I'll say is that, like, if I don't know if I should plug the show to people that are already listening to the show, but tell your friends, tell everybody. It's a fantastic listen. Just listen to guys talk shop, just some friends kicking it, all that kind of stuff. Also, shout out to my brother-in-law who bought me Dookie on vinyl when he heard that I was going to be recording this episode. So
nice.
Shout out to Andy.
Oh, that's awesome.
So now I have two vinyls. I am
nice.
Starting my collection very slowly. Stay Puft and then Dookie by Green Day. So that's eclectic.
Between the two of them, they average 11 million sales. Yeah. So there you go.
Those are the two most important albums you're ever going to need.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
It was very fun and easy to do, and great choice, Logan. All right. Well, we got a couple things left to do before we close things out. We are going to dip our hands into the old mailbag and pull out some stuff that you guys have been sending us, and I'm going to do that now. First up, we have Greg from Olympia, who writes, Greetings, my favorite complainers. Really enjoy the podcast. It's definitely my best find in the past 5 years. Listening to your crew brings me back to my college years in the 80s when my friends and I would sit around for hours listening to and critiquing every new album and music video that came out. I'm writing for the first time because I really enjoyed your recent podcast on Public Enemy's Fear of a Black Planet. I wore out 2 cassettes listening to that album when it hit. I was immediately drawn to them, but I never thought about how Chuck D's rap was more like a preacher until I heard your podcast, and that Marv Albert influence that Tom mentioned is also something that I will now never unhear. Anyway, I had the incredible experience of seeing them in concert in Chicago in 1990, and I've seen a lot of concerts in my life, but never a better show than what Public Enemy put on that day. Everyone on stage was in rare form. They played most of the album. It was mind-blowing. And I just wanted to say you were very accurate in your assessment of Flavor Flav's contribution because it was even more apparent live. He is the court jester in the Serious King's court. He played the part of moderating the anger. Just when you get pumped up with indignation, Flav is there to say, don't forget the message, but also have some fun. He made it all feel a lot less dangerous for white folks who would have only heard them to be militant without his contributions. Anyway, great work on the podcast. You have a forever listener.
I am glad to hear that because I got to tell you, I felt uniquely unqualified to host and explain the Public Enemy story and message. So I'm glad I at least got something right.
That was also a listener pick, by the way. Listener Stan came on and suggested that record to us. We had a fun time on that episode. So if you hadn't heard that one, go back and listen to it. It was only 2 months ago, I want to say. And we have one more here. This is Remco, writing from the Netherlands. Dear Rob and fellow complainers, hello from Amsterdam. I just wrapped up the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers episode, and I'm right there with you. Dimery definitely picked the wrong album. After your nudge, I put on Damn the Torpedoes, another Tom Petty album. It's such an obvious choice that your unanimous pass almost feels like a warning. In a revised list, Tom and his entire band might vanish entirely from the list. But here's the twist. Their legacy might be way bigger than the list gives them credit for. See, back in the late 70s, a young sound engineer dropped by the studio while the band was recording. He was collecting drum and percussion samples for a little side project, and the Heartbreakers helped him out by recording hand claps. Nothing fancy, just a quick favor. That engineer's name, Roger Lynn, and those hand claps ended up on the world's first sample-based drum machine, the LM1, which was followed by the Lynn drum.
No shit.
Which went on to define the sound of the 80s.
Get out of here.
It is all over albums in the Dimery book.
What?
Prince practically built his empire on this drum machine.
Dude.
Especially those hand claps, which he loved detuning by slowing them down. You can hear it front and center on When Doves Cry and so many of his other hits.
Damn. That's fucking awesome.
I did fact check this. It is true.
Dude, that's crazy.
He closes by saying, I haven't cross-checked the entire Dimery list, but it is entirely possible that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers have a bigger sonic footprint on all the albums than people like Booker T and the MGs, the Funk Brothers, or even the Wrecking Crew.
God damn. That's fucking awesome.
Wow, man. That's great.
Very cool anecdote. This is why we love to get your mail. I was so pleased to read that and then find out that it was actually true because I made sure to check to the best of my ability. Such an awesome tidbit. So cool to be able to report that to you guys in the audience and you guys here on the show. And if you have anything like that, honestly, that's a high bar. Anything in your heart, anything in your brain, send it on over. We want to hear from you. It helps keep us going. It's the manna that sustains our ability to do this podcast and listen to albums 17,000 times that we don't even want to. Anyway, send it on over to 1001 Album Complaints. We'd love you for it. Now, we have to get our homework for next week. Before we close things out, I'm going to send things over to Tom with the Albinator.
Thank you, Rob. I have the Albinator here. It has been throwing mud at me throughout the entirety of this performance. Let's see if I can get it to come on over here and shoot out an album for us. So without any further ado, drum roll, please. We will be listening to... Oh, another bunch of super punk lads. This is the Dave Brubeck's Quartet's album, Time Out. Yeah. Something tells me a lot of power chords on this one.
He's pretty punk.
Yeah.
I don't know. 5/4 times pretty punk, dude.
It is, you know. The greatest jazz piano player, according to like Piano Player magazine, not Duke Ellington, right?
The spoiler alert, that's definitely not true,
Wow.
but I am excited to listen to Dave Brubeck for next week. We hope you listen along with us and join us again next week for another thrilling episode of 1001 Album Complaints. For everyone here at the show, I have been Rob.
I have been Tom.
I have been Logan.
And I'm Adam.
Boosh.